Hey friends, it's Anna. Hope you're doing well. I am so excited for this video because today we are going to be setting up my 2024 reading journal. I've been looking forward to this honestly ever since I set up this year's journal. So grab some tea or coffee, get cozy, and let's get journaling. I'm using this beautiful forest green square journal from Archer and Olive, and as you saw, we're starting the setup kind of in the middle of the journal. This is only my second year doing a reading journal, and I started 2023's in July and only used up a third of this Archer and Olive notebook. So we're going to stay in this one for now, and if my reading rate remains at about the same pace, then I think 2024 will fill out the rest of this journal perfectly. We're starting out with my cover and quote pages. I like to go for a scrapbooky style where I use tea stain paper, printed pictures, washi tape, stickers, stamps, even old book pages. Like you saw, I used part of an old Harry Potter book. I do a lot of drawing in my regular bullet journal, so it's kind of a relaxing change of pace in this journal to just play around with all these elements and collage together the pages. I used a couple pictures I found on Pinterest. I think I found most of these by searching dark academia aesthetic, and I'm finishing up the borders with some washi tape. For the title, I'm using a new tool I recently got. This is an embossing label maker, so I can basically customize what I want to say and it will emboss it on this black label strip. It's adhesive on the back, so I can just then stick it right on the page. I'll link this and all the other tools I'm using in the setup in the description box below, although I will say for this label maker, it jammed several times throughout the setup. I always manage to get it to work, but there may be some higher quality versions out there. I love how it looks though. I think it goes perfect with this vintage vibe. On the right, I'm doing a quote page. There are so many beautiful quotes about reading, and some of you all gave me some really great suggestions in my last setup video. I decided to go with a quote from Cicero, who said, "A room without books is like a body without a soul." I'm writing it out partly with my alphabet stamp set and partly in a calligraphy font to emphasize some of the words. I messed up one of the lines here, but that's okay because I'm going to tear out each line from this tea stain paper and paste those lines on top of the picture already on the page. Going along with the theme of the quote, I thought it would be perfect to have a picture of a large, old-fashioned library, and that also perfectly fits with the vintage dark academia vibe I'm going for in this setup. I want flipping through these reading journal pages to feel like I'm in an old library, looking at ancient manuscripts, hearing the scratching of quills, smelling old paper, basically like I'm in the Hogwarts library, I guess. That's the vibe I'm going for. To finish off the page, I'm adding some washi tape to the edges, and I went through a few different variations of tape before finding the final combination I like. I don't always show it on camera or else this video would be way too long, but I am constantly trying out different tapes and moving things around. But that's part of the fun with this type of setup, that you can just play with it until you find the look you love. Although it does result in me having this line of washi tape rejects at the edge of my desk. On to the next spread, which will be my reading tracker or book count for 2024. I'm starting off with some tea stain paper, as I do with most of these spreads. I did stain this paper myself using a tutorial from Plant-Based Bride. I'll link her video below in case you're interested in staining your own paper. I'm using the embosser again for my title, but switched to trying out the gold label strip. I'm doing the title and some decorations in the middle of the page, and the functional parts of the spread will be on the top and bottom. This page is to simply track the number of books I read in 2024. My loose goal is to read 63 books because I'm on track to finish just over 50 books this year, which is crazy. I'm really proud of myself because I don't think I've ever read that much before. But I thought 63 was a good goal because it will be a challenge, but it's still doable based off of my reading this year. So I'm starting to draw 63 boxes with the space left on the page. I'll number each box, and then every time I finish a book, I'll color in the box, and that will help me keep count of how many books I've read throughout the year. Also, the spacing worked out perfectly for me to draw 63 boxes, which I'm not going to lie, did factor into me choosing that number for my goal. But like I said, I did think this was a good target since it's just a slight increase from what I read this year. Going ahead and introducing the page on the right side, this is where I'm going to list my 2024 reading goals. Now for these goals we're about to get into, and for this book count tracker, I'm not super strict on myself. I love setting reading goals and making TBRs and all that because I'm genuinely excited about what I want to read and enjoy writing it down. But I never want to feel forced into reading or to make it stressful or a chore, so I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to fully complete these goals. They're just more of a guide for books I know I'm excited to read, and if my mood throughout the year takes me elsewhere, then so be it, that's fine too. I'm creating a little title section up top incorporating one of my favorite stationery tools, these silicone book stamps. And below that, I'll write out the 5 reading goals I have. The first 2 goals are both related to classics. First, I want to read at least 2 Bronte sister books. In 2023, one of my goals was to read all of Jane Austen's novels, and I did complete that goal and thoroughly enjoyed it. So next year I want to move on to the Bronte sisters. I'm not going to decide now which 2 books I want to read, but I'm thinking Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights are at the top of my list. Next is to read 2 classics of Russian literature. I know I want to read War and Peace because I have this beautiful copy from Barnes & Noble on display on my bookshelf, and I would love to have actually read it. And then I might go full out with Leo Tolstoy and read Anna Karenina as well, but I'm also interested in Crime and Punishment. And as you can see here, under each goal, I'm pasting in a cover of a book that represents that goal, and then the squares are what I'll fill in when I read each book, and I'll also write the title of the book next to the filled in square. Taking a turn in a very different direction, my next goal is to finally read a few popular fantasy series, which I can't believe I haven't read yet, honestly. I have ACOTAR, of course, and then the Cruel Prince trilogy and the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. I think I can read that series without reading Caraval first, but I would love any advice in the comments on if you think I have to or should read the Caraval series first. For some reason, Once Upon a Broken Heart has always piqued my interest more than Caraval, so that's why I listed that trilogy. Sticking with fantasy, my next goal is to read some Brandon Sanderson this year. I also can't believe I haven't read any of his works yet, but I'm going to put the cover of Mistborn here because I think that's the series I'm going to start with. And then lastly, I want to read at least 3 books on my nonfiction TBR. I'm putting The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer as the cover here because that's the one I'm most excited about, but I do have a long nonfiction TBR that I would love to put a dent in. Moving on to my next spread, which will be about more books for the new year. This is the last spread about books I want to read, and the rest of the setup is more about trackers to use during the year. But both these pages will be my list of 24 books for 2024. I think a lot of people do this spread in their reading journals. This is my first time including it, but basically I'm going to print the covers of 24 books I want to read and paste them here. Unlike the last page, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a goal to read any of these books next year, but this is more of a list of books I'm excited about, books on my radar, books that maybe have been on my shelf for a while that I really want to get to. And then at any point in 2024, if I ever just don't know what to read next, I can reference this list for ideas. I did my title for the spread in the corner and broke out my Botanist Anthology sticker book to add some butterflies on top of the washi tape. Now I'm cutting out the book covers and I'll show you real quick how I print these. I use Google Docs to print from and usually go to Goodreads to find the book covers because I know their pictures are high resolution. So I'll find the book I want on Goodreads, copy the picture they have, and paste it in my Google Doc. And then I go over here to image options, size and rotation, and then adjust the height to what I want it to be based on what I've measured in my journal. And when you resize the height, Google Docs automatically adjusts the width for you, which is nice. Back to the journal, I'm going to paste in all the covers and add some washi tape for the finishing touches. A few notable books on this list that I'm most excited about. We have The Prisoner of Heaven by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I just finished The Shadow of the Wind by him, and this book exists in the same universe of The Cemetery of Forgotten Books. I also have the Shades of Magic series here. I've read several books by V.E. Schwab, and a whole fantasy trilogy by her seems like such a treat. Let me know if any of these books are also on your 2024 TBR, or if you've read and would recommend any of these. I would love to hear your opinions. Moving on to our next spread, which will take up both of these pages. This is my book log for the year, where I can record every book I read with a few stats about each book. I'm going back to my label embosser for the title, and then I put that book stamp there as a placeholder because I knew I wanted the stamp there on top of some washi tape. But we're going to jump right into making the chart before adding the rest of the decorative touches. I'm creating 6 different columns, which will be for the number of book I'm on, the title of the book, dates I started and finished the book, number of pages, the form of the book, aka was it audio or physical or an ebook, and then my rating. I did the spread for my 2023 journal, and I really like having this comprehensive list of my reading for the year. It kind of feels like a lot to track, but I record the dates on my phone right when I start or finish a book, and the rest of it is pretty easy to fill in whenever I'm doing my monthly spreads, so it's not terribly hard to stay on track with. I would like to start using Goodreads more, like maybe I could use that to mark when I start and finish books instead of using the Notes app on my phone, and then I'd also have an updated Goodreads. Right now I mainly use Goodreads for looking at reviews, even though I know I can do much more than that. To finish off this spread, I'm adding some washi tape and that stamp to the title area, along with some more butterfly stickers. Next up is one of the spreads I'm most excited about. This is my book bracket for 2024. I got this idea from Elizabeth and her reading journal, and it's basically a way to figure out what your top book of the year is. So I'm starting out with the title up top, again trying to figure out the stamp placement before adding my washi tape. I use a lot of tape from this grid set that was recently gifted to me from some family, and I also leaned pretty heavily on a few tapes from my vintage set. Like I mentioned earlier, all my supplies, including any washi tape sets I pulled from, will be linked below if you're curious. The next stationery tool I really need to get is an acrylic block to use for the silicone stamps. As you can tell, right now I'm just using the lid of my stamp pad, and sometimes that gets ink all over the page. So now I'm starting to create the bracket with 12 boxes up top, one for each month of the year. So how this works is I'll choose my top book of each month and write the title in these boxes. Then the picks from January and February will go head to head, and I'll pick my favorite of those. March and April will go head to head, and so on. Then those picks will compete with each other to determine my top 3, and then between my top 3, I'll pick my favorite to get my number 1 book of 2024. I'm planning on just writing the titles of the books for most of the stages in the bracket, but I drew a larger rectangle for the top pick so I can print a picture of the book cover and paste it there. I know this system isn't perfect because what if you read your top 2 books in the same month and then one of them isn't even going to make it on the bracket? But I still think this will be really fun to fill out, and it's an easier way to find my top book than just looking at everything I read together and trying to choose a favorite. I did make this spread for my 2023 journal. I haven't filled it out yet because I wanted to wait until the very end of the year and do it all at once. I'm even thinking I might make a separate video of myself filling it out, so stay tuned for that. I am thinking for 2024 though that I'll choose my favorite book for each month as I go along throughout the year, while all the books I read each month are still fresh in my mind. But I'll still wait until the end of the year to fill out the rest of the bracket. I'm finishing off the spread with some pictures and tape at the bottom, and that's my book bracket. This next page is a new spread I'm trying out this year. I'm titling it Book Acquisition, and this is basically to track my book buying habits along with the books I borrow from the library. I think that, like a lot of people in the book community, I struggle with buying maybe too many books. I don't know, how many books is too many is pretty subjective, but I would like at least to have a clear picture of my spending habits in this area, which is what this spread is for. And then an alternative to spending money on books is borrowing them from the library, so I also thought it'd be cool to track that as like an encouragement to lean on the library more. I'm creating a table with columns for the title of the book, type of book, like physical, audio, ebook. I think I called that form in my reading log, which is kind of inconsistent, but oh well. Then I have a column for the place I got the book, so did I buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc., or if I borrowed it from the library or listened to it on the Libby app, which is my new favorite thing, by the way. I cannot believe I just discovered the Libby app. If you don't already use it, it's an app that pairs with your local library card, and you can use it to manage borrowing physical books from your library, or you can also borrow audio and ebooks and listen or read them directly through the Libby app. So I'm currently listening to A Christmas Carol, and I just finished the audiobook of The Dutch House, which is amazing that I was able to listen to these books so easily and for free. But anyways, back to the table. The last two columns are for price if I bought the book, and a column for checking off if I actually read the book in 2024, which is going to be very interesting to see how many of the books I bought throughout the year I actually read that same year. My hopes are not too high considering how many unread books I have on my shelves right now, but that's the point of this spread, to at least acknowledge my book acquisition habits. I also carried over the table to the bottom of the right page because I thought I might need more space, and the other spread I'm creating on this page shouldn't need too much room. Speaking of, this last page of the setup is for my book club reads. I have a book club with some friends, and I think it's fun to see the collection of books that we've read together. So this is just a space for me to print out the covers of our book club picks for 2024 so I can look back and remember the stories I read with my friends this year. I'm drawing the corners of where I'll put the printed book covers around my little book club title in the middle. And lastly, I wanted to separate this a bit from the book acquisition table since they're really two different spreads. So I'm going to use a really thin striped washi tape to create a border around the book club section. And that's it for my 2024 reading journal setup. We'll do a final flip through to see all the spreads together. I am so excited for another year of doing a reading journal. I'm really happy with how these spreads turned out, and I can't wait to start filling them out in 2024. I hope you enjoyed journaling with me. Be sure to subscribe if you want to follow along for more book and journaling content. I'm wishing you guys a wonderful start to the new year and happy reading.